Welcome everyone to People, Their Passion and Purpose. I'm here again with Amanda Spiro. And let me tell you, it's been a minute and we have had to reschedule this appointment that we had together about 3 times, I think.
Maybe
So
more.
maybe more. So yeah, I think that's a good place to start. If you remember last time we talked about you having been diagnosed with cancer and your journey in religion, which
Hmm.
just to go back for like 1 second is just to say how interesting I thought it was that, you talked about, always having that interest as a young child. Um, and then it was really having been diagnosed with cancer that brought you closer to that part of yourself that
Yes.
you always felt within you. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I thought that was really cool. But we didn't talk about your family and we didn't really talk about, that you're married and you have kids and things like that. So I think today we could talk about that. And today we're going to talk about your dad and the fact that he lives with Alzheimer's and what that does for you and your family.
Hmm.
And but let's just talk about having to reschedule this 3 times or 4 times.
Let's do it. I think it's
Well,
just life.
life.
Life sometimes happens, and as long as you're living your best life, it's okay. I
Hmm.
think it's again like just trusting that when the timing's right, it's going to be. So you could like stress about it and be like, oh, to reschedule and like resist it all, or just say like, okay, it's not meant to be right now. It's not the right time. And I know for myself, when we spoke a little bit about self-care and we took that course together, it's just like always checking in and knowing like, I want to do this. I want to connect with you. I know it's for the greater good, but it might not be the right time. Family's a priority, sleep is a priority, and whatever. We're meant to be doing this exactly at this moment. This is when God wanted it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There was like even one time where you couldn't make it, and I said, that's okay. I'm good. I'm good
Hmm.
today. Maybe my energy's not there either. So,
Exactly.
you
But
know,
I feel
and
full energy today.
and I want you what?
I feel full energy today.
Good, good. And I want my guests to always be ready and open and available and have like a good energy. So that's it. So great. So now we're finally here. So let's talk about your dad. And if you
Mhm.
could talk a little bit about his diagnosis first, I guess we could start there and then go into your relationship and how you cope.
Okay. So my dad is now 68 years old. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when he was 62, young age.
Young.
He has a rare form of Alzheimer's called Benson syndrome, which really affects your mobility.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
often people think of Alzheimer's as memory loss, forgetfulness, which is part of it, but there's so many different types of Alzheimer's and dementia, and it manifests itself differently in everyone. So for my father, it started um, where we just noticed a sudden change in his behavior. He wasn't his same self. My dad used to be like a very chill, easygoing, happy-go-lucky, like nothing can get in his way. And all of a sudden, first of all, he lost his business kind of overnight. And that too, we weren't really aware of why, what, when, it kind of just happened. Not saying it has anything to do with his Alzheimer's, but, after that, he just wasn't himself. He was sleeping a lot. And we kind of felt like, hey, you need to like start working. You're young. You've always worked. And we would find him on this couch, just like sleeping. And he just had no drive. And we thought he was going through a deep depression.
That's what it sounds like. Like as you're talking, I'm like, oh, it sounds like depression.
Yeah, we thought he was really depressed, which
Hmm.
was really hard because we didn't know why, like what's going on. And then eventually it was just getting so bad and he was just acting a little bit strange. And we spoke to my mother about it. And then eventually we're like, let's have an intervention, a family intervention. And so that's what we did. And we spoke to my father about it. And that's when he kind of like broke down and he was like, something's wrong. But he himself didn't really know what's wrong. And my mother kind of, you know, shielded us from a lot, but she kind of, shared with us some things that she was experiencing with him and that she noticed. And then we were in Florida, and my brother's best friend is a neurologist. And my brother said, I'm going to ask him if he could see him. And
Mm.
obviously, he can't diagnose him. My dad's Canadian, but he saw him and did a bunch of tests and knew right then and there that this is for sure Alzheimer's, a form of Alzheimer's or dementia. He went back to Montreal, and that's when he was diagnosed. And we noticed like in Florida, he was like getting lost often. And again, he was just very withdrawn. It was like he lost his light, his shine, his brightness, his personality. He just wasn't the same self.
That's a great loss.
Hmm.
Scary loss.
Yeah, it was very, very hard. But I
Hmm.
think like anything, like I always say, when I was diagnosed with cancer, there was a sense of relief of just knowing why something's happening. And then you start to deal with what you have to deal with. But
Right.
the known and uncertainty is always like that gray area is always the hardest, I believe.
So when this was happening at the very beginning, like what were you feeling? What were you thinking? Like deep down inside?
So that was a really hard time,
Hmm.
just like I myself also kind of felt withdrawn, not knowing what was happening. And I think when I found out he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, even though we kind of knew, it was very hard.
Hmm.
And I remember having a hard time like accessing my inner strength that I discovered
Mm.
and almost having a hard time like practicing what I preach. And I said, here I am, a motivational speaker, sharing with the world, how to be. And I found this gift from God. And then I was like, whoa, I'm having a hard time. And so thank God I trusted that, that is the best way to live your life. So I just had to kind of revisit it, start from the beginning. It's almost like not going to the gym for a really long time, but knowing like when you go, you feel good, you look good, you just got to get back to the gym.
Hmm.
But for a while, I would just find myself like crying so hard, driving my kids to school, dropping them off, and just like I used to call my aunt in Ottawa, my dad's sister, who's very strong, and I would just like vent and share. And at the very beginning, which was also very hard, is we didn't tell anyone. My mother, for whatever reason, just, I guess like an invasion of privacy. She needed to learn to deal with this new reality, didn't want to give up. He was still at the stage where like you noticed, you didn't notice. So we didn't feel like it was necessary to tell people, it's like to keep his dignity. He was like a very classy man. So, sometimes people would like say to me, like, you're not yourself. And I couldn't say to them, well, yeah, my dad has Alzheimer's.
Hmm.
So, being this girl who's like usually, the life at the party and easygoing and positive attitude, I kind of lost that charm for a bit. Um, so that was really hard. Yeah,
Hmm.
there were just moments I would just find myself even going to sleep, just like crying and, being worried about, my mind wandering, what's going to be.
Hmm.
But then I feel like I got a grip on it all, and I was very proactive, like I always am when I'm in these really hard, uncomfortable situations to do what I need to do. So I reached out to my rabbi and I reached out to my mentors and, I tried to apply all those tools and to really just do what I got to do to stay strong. And, once I got to a place of acceptance and trusting that my family's meant to go through this, that's when I regained my strength. I like reclaimed it and I was able to try and be present and say to myself, these moments are precious, especially with this type of disease. You got to enjoy every single moment. You got to be there for him. You got to show your support. And I'm still in that place right now where I try really hard to just,
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah. Um, I just wrote a note. That's why I looked away for a moment. But when you say like, you were keeping secrets, you couldn't really tell anybody. It's always difficult, like there's a fine line between like always keeping secrets and everything is secretive, to there's a time and a place and a right place to say, right?
Mhm.
What's going on. And sometimes, like, did you ever just say, there's a few things happening right now, nothing to get into, but they're just a little heavy and I'm working on them. Or like,
Yeah. I
how
don't
did,
think I did. I
yeah.
think like maybe to like random people, like if I had to excuse myself, like especially in our community, which we spoke so much about last time, is like we're all about giving,
Mhm.
Someone has a baby, you make a meal. Someone's sick, you make a meal, you show up. And I wasn't showing up as much as I used to. And I kind of felt like, oh, I don't want to be judged or I don't want them to think like, so I kind of maybe would say that to someone like that, sorry, like I wish I could do this, but I'm going through something, like don't worry about it. But
Mhm.
with my closest friends, they
Mhm.
know me. I'm an open book. I'm very transparent, you know? And I feel like my closest friends would like maybe dig and be like, Amanda, talk to me. You know you'll feel good sharing it. And I didn't want to be put in that position because I felt like I'd be breaking confidentiality to my family.
Yeah.
I really respected my mother and she wasn't ready. She didn't feel like it was necessary at that stage for anyone to know. And I really respected that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had to just sort of go through that.
Right. Which wasn't easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting also how you always go, you and everybody else, like sometimes things happen and we need to, things that we've been doing to take care of ourselves stop, and we need to go back and remind ourselves, almost be our own mentors and our own
Yes.
reminders as to what we
Yes.
need to do, right? For
We
ourselves.
all know what we need to do.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
We all know.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, what a hard time. Well, I'm happy that you're past that stage, you know.
Mhm.
And so now tell me a little bit about the relationship you had with your father before his diagnosis, and what it's like now, and how's he,
Mhm.
what are you doing?
So me and my father were always very, very close. We're very, very similar. We actually look exactly alike. Like sometimes I'm like even looking at myself right now on the Zoom, I'm like, I see my father, you
Yeah.
know? Everywhere I go, everyone's like, you must be Lawrence Skolnick's daughter. I'm like, yeah, you know? Um, my mother used to travel a lot for business,
Hmm.
and I would be with my father.
Hmm.
And my father was so cool. Especially as I got older, I really appreciated him. He would like always take me and my friends out on the weekend, like to a nice dinner and wine and dine us. We used to go on trips to New York together. He really spoiled me rotten. And we used to have like really deep, meaningful conversations. I like really trusted my father. He really didn't like sweat the small stuff. He didn't like get annoyed over nothing. He was all about like peace. And, sometimes I feel like he was too nice. Like he would let
Right.
people walk all over him at times, but he was just very confident in that way.
Mm.
So we
Yeah.
were very, very close. I feel closer to him now than I ever have
Mm.
because it's a deeper connection. It's more of like a soul connection that sometimes he's not even speaking. I'll visit him and he's sleeping, or he's awake, but he's agitated, or he's not able to formulate a sentence.
Mm.
But I spend my time with him and I visit him and I hold his hand and I feel this like I close my eyes sometimes and I bring myself back when, he was there and I remember all those memories. And it's like a deep connection, a deep appreciation, realizing like time's precious again. And, I have to enjoy it all. So
Mhm.
I feel very, very close to him. And now we're entering a new stage. That's the nature of this disease, is that there's different stages. I mean, like most illnesses, and different stages of grief as well. It's called like ambiguous grief, where you're grieving someone that's alive. It's
Yeah.
very it's very hard. And I find for myself, it's like waves. I definitely go through moments of like deep grief. And in those moments, I just allow myself to have those moments.
Yeah.
And then there's times that I'm good. And then there's times like out of sight, out of mind, and I don't think about it. And people bring it up to me like, oh yeah, it's like I don't know if I'm like putting it under the carpet or, I just try to keep myself busy. That's always the advice I got from a wise Rebbitzin, Hanne Karlbach. She always told me, stay busy, do good, and it
Mm.
will be good. And I
Yeah.
really just try to like throw myself into like good things and be surrounded by good people and do things that lift me up. And it helps. I really believe it helps.
Right. That's nice. So are you getting any help from, like, when you say, like, the stages and things like that? Are you getting help
Mm.
from an organization that specializes and knows a lot about Alzheimer's?
So there's an amazing organization in Montreal, AGI,
Mhm.
Alzheimer's Association, I think it stands for.
Mhm.
It's on Westminster and Côte Saint-Luc. They also have one in the West Island. I was more involved. I used to go to support groups, especially during COVID, Now I kind of have my own support. Unfortunately, I know people who also have parents with Alzheimer's, or I've met people. So, I have my go-tos when I'm feeling vulnerable and I just need to vent and share, and I know they totally get it. Um, but yeah, I also kind of like self-taught myself.
Mhm.
about this disease. I've read books. I even got books for my kids that they should understand this disease because they're close with my parents.
Mhm.
My kids sleep there still. They go to have sleepovers with Bubby and they experience many things and they see a lot of hard things. And sometimes I say to myself, is this good for them? Is it not good for them? But
Mhm.
I think it's real.
Mhm.
And I want to build resilient, strong children.
Mhm.
And I think when I grew up, my mother shielded me a lot. She wanted to protect me. And of course, I want to protect my kids, but I also feel like they need to be aware of reality. And this is such a big part of my life. And they have such sensitivity. It's so beautiful to see. It's like when they're with my father, they're like, most of the time, really well behaved. And, they give him exactly what he needs and what Bubby needs. And it's my mother's biggest healer is being around is her grandchildren.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And also, you are just opening up your kids' eyes to things. And sometimes I would think that, allowing them to be with your father in all kinds of different ways, no matter how he's
Mhm.
doing or what's going on in the
Mhm.
house when they're
Mhm.
there, you know, knowing that their bubby is there to support them, knowing that you're there to support them in this, I'm sure is wonderful for them, and
Mhm.
I mean, social media, but I really love to see your kids on social media. I love to see how they're so involved with you and your husband and all your projects. I love to
Mhm.
see how and for a while your son was talking about Alzheimer's on,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
things like that. So, they're going to grow up more realistic, and
Mhm.
maybe with better coping skills.
That's the goal.
I so I think it's nice to hear, and
Mhm.
I'm not here to give my opinion necessarily, but I do like what you're sharing, and I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so when you're with your dad and he's not like responsive or not, uh, I guess, does he know you're there?
Yes.
Are there,
Yes.
like, how do you know that he
He
knows
knows
there?
what's interesting again, which
Yes.
is awareness, is that not everyone realizes, like people ask me all the time. Sometimes it triggers me a bit, to be honest. Like, does your dad remember who you are? And I'm like, yes, he
Mm,
fully remembers who I am. That's not really his issue. He even like might even remember you. If I'm like, oh,
mm,
remember who did my makeup for my wedding? He'd
right.
be like, young, young, like that's not there. It doesn't even make sense, this illness. It's like different parts of the brain, and sometimes this one part works and this part doesn't work. But he remembers people, he connects with people that come see him. So yeah, he fully remembers me. He forgets how to do certain things, like get dressed or eat, or sometimes he even gets lost, like he'll go upstairs and he'll go to like my mother has like a nursery there for the grandchildren. He'll like go into like the baby's room, and be like, where's my bed? Where's my bed? It's like, Dad, you're in the wrong room. Let's take you to the room. So it's more stuff like that. It's like a little bit confusing and it's kind of hard to explain the illness or my dad's particular situation. You kind of have to be with him to get it.
Mhm.
And some days my dad can completely fool you. You could be with him. Like my friends have come over, my dad's been here. They're like, your dad's great, like unbelievable. And I'm like, yeah, you should have saw him yesterday. Like, you know,
You
so
are
every day's a
explaining
different
it.
story.
You are explaining it well. Like I'm learning a lot as I'm talking to
Hey,
you.
I'm happy to
Yes.
hear that.
And I wanted to go back for a second for with your kids being with him. I find it so interesting and so nice when I see a child that's learning to be aware of other people around them and
Mhm.
learning that it's not only about them and that they have to, that when they show kindness to others and taking care of others.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to throw that in too, because that's what I was
Mhm.
thinking about before.
Mhm. Right.
Um, so, now that what kind of support does he need to get? That's it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, different stages, he needed different things, different needs, but now he has a full staff
Mm,
of caregivers. He
mm,
has one that lives with him. He has a daytime one, a nighttime one. His best caregiver is my mother.
mhm,
And she has a hard time, like, stepping away and, she wants to be in control of the whole situation. Like sometimes I'll say to my mom, Mom, you're spending so much money, you have so much help. Like you could go out tonight, and she has a hard time like doing that. but simultaneously, she makes time for herself and does what she needs to do and still has, fun things in her schedule. She's going to Florida this summer for a wedding. She's going to leave my dad behind with his respite, with his help, and they're more than capable. They're angels. Like, I get choked up when I think about his caregivers because he's the luckiest man. Like, God sent him angels. They're unbelievable. Their personalities, the care, the love, the compassion, they're unbelievable.
He
So
lives
yeah,
at home. He lives at home in
he
your home.
lives at
Your,
home. That
your,
was his wish, and we're again respecting his wish until it's unmanageable.
Mhm.
Again, I think in any illness or any challenge you're going through in life, it's like, cliche, but like day by day. Like a lot of things, we're like, we'll deal with it as it comes.
Mhm.
We're kind of like, it's in the back of our minds, and we know like we went to go visit different homes, but we don't know what will be. Right now, our goal is to keep him comfortable, to keep him at home in his natural setting in an environment that he feels, the most comfortable in.
Mhm.
And if anything ever changes, we'll deal with it then and see what's best for him.
Mhm. Hmm. Wow.
Yeah, but we had to make changes in the home, of course, in the bathroom, and, you know, now he has a walker, and, he spends a lot of time downstairs so he doesn't have to go up and down because they have a big house, and, the stairs going up, he really only goes up or down once, to avoid that.
Mhm. Mhm. And so, and your mom, what kind of support, other than the women there that are helping physically, and I'm sure emotionally as well, but is there any other support that she's getting? How often are you
Yeah.
around? How often do you speak to your mom?
I speak to my mom every day, sometimes a few times a day.
That's
My
great.
mother has the most amazing shout out to all her blonde dollared ladies. Some of them moved to the city, but she has a lot of friends. My mom, she's the coolest people I know. She has tons and tons of friends, and they all want to help and be there. And even a group of them, their husbands come every Tuesday and have dinner with my dad.
Mm.
So she has a lot of support just from her friends. And my mother's like very strong also, she's very resilient. She's been through a lot in her life. So she really also like just keeps herself busy. She, plays cards with her friends. She, goes for dinner, does fun things. She just started a Pilates class. I believe she's in a support group too with IGA. She's busy, she's well surrounded, and her main
AGI,
ideation,
AGI,
AGI, yeah,
eh,
what, yeah.
IGA.
Yeah, IGA grocery store.
Sorry.
She also spends a lot of time there, and
Yeah.
she loves to cook. A little Freudian slip, and yeah,
Okay,
she's really busy, but her main job is she's a bubby, and that takes
mhm.
up a lot of her time. You
Good.
know, there's always something at the kids' schools. I'm going out of town next weekend for a speaking engagement. She's going to be with my kids. They sleep
Great.
over a lot. She comes to us pretty much every Shabbos. She'll be there tonight.
Mhm.
So she plays a big role in our lives, and that's helpful for her and it's helpful for me. So it's a win-win.
Mhm. And so I guess my question now would be, I mean, it's a hard question and I don't know how you'll answer, but like, your hopes for the future with your dad,
Hmm.
like like when you think about, oh, I hope that this or I
Hmm.
hope that, like
Hmm. Hmm.
allow yourself to go there, or what do you
Right.
think?
No, I do. I do. So my hopes is that, you know, I believe when it's the time, it will be the time. I really believe that, we learn that from the time we're born, we know when we will die. God knows that's
Mhm.
already set. Um, I just really hope and pray that he'll be comfortable, because that's the hardest part for me of this illness is he's not well. He has moments that he is well, but he could live for many more years.
Mhm.
And that's hard
Mhm.
because he's only going to get worse and worse. And I already see that he's not always comfortable. I just hope and pray that he's comfortable till the day he dies, and
Mhm.
that there's new advances and new medicine to keep him comfortable, to keep him calm, and that we always have the patience, and we always have, financially able to do what we're doing and have this awesome team. That's just what I hope for him, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And just going back to you again and talking about your resilience and your strength and your power, uh,
Mm.
when you have those moments of like helplessness um, when you're grieving, when you're going through the different stages of grieving, your heart and your soul for strength, where does it go and what do you do? Just remind everybody where you go and what you do for that.
Right. So I try to not be so hard on myself that when I'm having these like deep moments of grief,
Mhm.
I just let it pass and I do whatever I got to do in that moment. If it's going for a nap, if it's going for a walk, if it's just crying and just not even making an effort to do anything, just allowing myself and saying to myself, like, Amanda, you're allowed to be really sad. Most of the time, you're strong and powerful and resilient, but you're human. And sometimes you don't have the strength, and that's okay. I've learned to do that because I used to be really hard on myself. Like, oh, I'm so positive. What's going on? Why am I like this? It's like people would be like, Amanda, your dad's really sick. It's
Mhm.
okay to be sad. It wouldn't be normal if you weren't sad.
Mhm.
But on a daily, I just try to do everything I've learned to stay positive, to stay strong, to take care of myself. I exercise every day. I just came from a yoga class. I try to get fresh air. I surround myself by positive people. I try to bring godliness into everything I do and to elevate everything I do. First thing I do when I wake up is, have my moment of gratitude and prayer and really just try to connect and get grounded. And those things really help me and just connect to my true self, my soul, my inner strength, build my relationship with God, build my relationship with everyone around me. That keeps me strong.
And what do you think would be the best book for someone to start with if they want to try to understand what your father might be going through or
Mm,
some help for themselves or
I'll have to send that to you.
okay,
My memory isn't so
okay.
great. I've read
Well,
so many books, but it's
yeah.
like,
If
I don't have,
anything came to mind, like,
yeah,
and I could
yeah.
post
No,
it.
there's a lot of good ones. I'll have to
Right.
send it to
But
you.
I'll put them in the description
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when I
There,
post
there are
the,
some really good
yeah.
ones for kids as well.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
also if there's a space where you share, your tools that you have, where should people go to see them? And where are the best places for people to follow you and things like that.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
like what you just said, I mean, what you've said in both our interviews, but what you've just said in before, like when I asked you what is it that you do for strength, I think it was really great. So if
Hmm.
you can just let me know and I'll put things in the
For
chat.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also in terms of awareness and Alzheimer's, there are so many amazing influencers
Mhm.
on social media that
Okay.
talk about Alzheimer's that are unbelievable, that just
Okay.
normalize it, that explain it, and just for people to really understand this disease.
Yeah, that's really important because it seems to be coming around more and more. And what is it that's making so many people live with this?
Hmm.
That might be another discussion, but
Yes.
but it's coming around a lot. And in famous
Yeah,
people as well. And so people are getting so if there's a couple of influencers that you really like I'm very happy to also, pop that in the chat and in the
for
description.
sure.
That would be great. Yeah. And so we just have a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to share with people to leave people with if they don't have an experience with Alzheimer's or if, you know, uh, what you would like to let them know.
Hmm. Hmm. So, mental health is also such a topic that everyone speaks about, and that's so important. And everyone, we speak about mental health and think of someone with depression, anxiety, bipolar, or schizophrenic, but everyone has mental health, right? And our mental health is different every day. And I find this illness is very much that as well, because it's like in your mind and it could take over. And Alzheimer's is also connected to depression, anxiety because of the nature of the disease. So I think what I've learned is that looks are deceiving, right? Like with mental health also, someone could look perfect and the next day they're gone, right? And a lot of times my dad did look perfect, especially at the beginning. He was like handsome until he's still very handsome, but like
Very handsome.
now he has like a slouch and you see it, his demeanor, he looks not well. He looked fine. And no one would know what my family was going through.
Hmm.
And I think just to always be sensitive,
Hmm.
to really have an awareness of sensitivity that everyone's going through something, to just spread kindness,
Hmm.
right? I think that's the most important thing, is to just be kind and to also not forget about people that aren't well.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes people are so uncomfortable. I was actually on a podcast the other day. We spoke about this idea of like visiting people that aren't well, calling people that aren't well, or the family, or, you know, Shiva houses when someone passes away are so uncomfortable. But it goes back to what we were speaking about before. It's not about you,
Hmm.
it's about that person. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be embarrassed. It's okay to be awkward.
Hmm.
It's like this perfectionism that everything is supposed to be great and comfortable. No, sometimes there's moments in life that are hard, but you still have to be there for other people. And even if you go visit those people and you don't say the right thing, or you don't do the right thing, or you don't bring the right thing, the family feels your good intentions, that you just wanted to be there. You didn't know how to, but you wanted to. And that's heartwarming and that's healing.
Amen, sister. Oh, that is priceless. That's beautiful. I really
Mhm,
appreciate that. Thank you.
mhm, mhm.
So, thank you so much again for
Yeah,
being with myself and all our listeners today. And I really appreciate everything that you've said.
thank
And
you for giving me this platform to share and hopefully inspire and create more awareness.
yes, for sure. And so, to everyone out there, thank you so much for being with us. I'm pretty sure you all got a lot from this conversation. And then if you have to listen to it two or three times again, or anytime you're in a mood where you need a little lift or a little empathy, then please go back to
Mhm.
this conversation. So thank you. And I'm signing off from feeding feeding myself with plants is my other is my other name.
You
From
wear
my
too many hats.
I wear too many hats. People, their passion and purpose. Thanks again.
Thank you.